swallow this. Hi, I'm Andy, welcome to Screenfire. Before we start with our review, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe at the end if you enjoy our content. We cover video games, movies, merchandise and pop culture in general. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that as well under the JediBird85. The Evil Dead. One of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's not the first attempt to make a game out of it. The first Evil Dead video game dates back to 1984 on the Commodore 64, 3 years after the release of the first movie. On the 5th of December 2000, the first 3D Evil Dead game, Hail to the King, was released for PlayStation, Dreamcast and PC. A Fistful of Boomstick, Regeneration and a few other titles came out after that, and they all had one thing in common. They were bad games or mediocre at best. So what about the new Evil Dead game? If you don't know, it's an asymmetrical survival horror multiplayer developed by Saber Interactive. If you know me, you know that I'm addicted to Dead by Daylight, which is also known for its asymmetrical gameplay. I also enjoyed Predator Hunting Grounds to a certain degree, but most other games of the genre aren't that good. Evolve or even the Friday the 13th game, I just couldn't play them for long before I got bored. And Friday also had some very ugly animation that was more frightening than the game itself. And I have to say, Evil Dead has some problems, but it's one of the best asymmetrical games I've played so far. I was really surprised. Is it a perfect game? No. It has its fair share of problems, but first, let's talk about the gameplay, the level design and what's good about it. At the beginning, you can decide if you want to play in a group as one of 4 survivors or as the Kandarian demon. If you play one of the humans, you have to decide which class you're going to pick. Each class has different abilities and each character in that class comes with unique perks and a skill tree. As you can see, it's already more complex than the perk system in Dead by Daylight. The only question is this a good or a bad thing? If you start the game and only want to play a few rounds without learning too much about the gameplay, you're screwed. There's a difference if you really use your powers, especially on a strategic level while you're talking with your friends on Discord. The game also comes with in-game voice chat, but I immediately turned it off. It's similar to Dead by Daylight. It's just way more fun playing with friends. The goal of each round is always the same. Collect 3 map pieces and on your way look for weapons with different stats, ammo, health and other items. After you obtain all 3 pieces, you can choose what you want to collect first. The Kandarian Dagger or the Necronomicon. It really doesn't matter what you pick first. After you activated one of the 2, you have to stay in a blue circle and defeat one wave of enemies after another. Those come in different shapes and forms. Not only are there 3 demon classes, but there's also a variety of pretty weak Deadites and strong boss characters such as Henrietta and Evil Ash. If you survive both waves, you can go to the final battle with the so-called Dark Ones and defeat them in some kind of minigame that's kind of fun. If they are down, the Necronomicon appears and all you have to do at this point is to defend the book for another 2 minutes. If you succeed, you win the game. On the lower left side of the screen you can see your HUD. The blue bar is your armor, white is health, and the small white bar under your character's face is your stamina. The big pink or purplish bar is your fright meter. Depending on your class, if you're alone, enemies attack you, and what level your demon opponent is, the bar fills up to a certain amount where you can be possessed by a demon. At this point you can't control your character anymore and the other survivors need to hit and shoot at you until you can snap out of it. On the lower right side you have your flashlight, health and armor quick buttons and another level up system that you can use that resets with every new match. The controls are intuitive and after you finish the tutorial you should be ready to go. You can pick up ranged weapons such as guns and rifles and melee weapons like baseball bats, axes, and a good old chainsaw, of course. My personal favorite is the shovel. If an enemy is close to death, you can make some pretty gruesome finishing kills. And it looks and feels so good and satisfying. But not only if you finish them, the weapon feedback in general is also really good. The combat itself feels a bit clunky from time to time, depending on how many enemies are around and if you're in an open space or not. If it's too crowded or if something is in your way, you lose orientation or get stuck. There are also a few bugs here and there, but all in all, this didn't take away any fun at all. Let's talk about the level design and the maps in general. From the structure, they're all very similar. The base is always a huge forest, sometimes green, sometimes brown and dying. There are cornfields, small hills, or even mountain-like obstacles, and in between of all that, you have cabins and run-down houses or gas stations where you have to find your items. It can look very beautiful and atmospheric, but because the structure is always the same, it gets repetitive real fast. And I guess that's the main problem of the whole game. The map, the objectives, the enemies, everything is kind of repetitive. If you unlocked all of the cosmetics and upgraded all skill trees, there's not much left to do. There are also a lot of Evil Dead Easter eggs to discover, as trailer for example, the cabin in the woods, the trapdoor, the stack on the wall, which isn't moving unfortunately. If you open an item box, Ash's evil hand or Mini Ash from Army of Darkness can jump at you. It's a lot of fun, but after a while you've seen everything. There's also a story single player mode, but you can barely call it story single player because it feels like they put it in the last minute, and to be honest, it's nothing more than a horde mode filled with objectives you know from movies. In the first mission, for example, you need to find a shovel to dig up Linda's head, bring her to the shed and put her out of her misery. If you're finished, you unlock Ash from the TV series. You can do that once, but I can't see myself in a few years saying, "Do you remember when I played the first single player mission in Evil Dead the game? That was so great, I think I should play it again." Nope, I don't think so. It all sounds very negative, but it isn't. It's a game for $40, and if you're an Evil Dead fan or if you just like asymmetrical horror games, you can get 100, maybe even 150 hours fun out of it, if you play it with some friends. At one point I played alone, and it's really annoying if you're not playing as a team, or worse, have some idiot in your team who runs in the opposite direction of your objective because reasons. As mentioned, you can also play as the Kandarian demon, but it didn't hook me as much as the survivor mode. But that's just my personal preference. You can choose between 3 different demons with different skills, creatures and bosses. There's the Warlord class with Henrietta from Evil Dead 2, the Puppeteer with Eligos from the Ash vs Evil Dead TV show, and of course the Necromancer with Evil Ash from the Army of Darkness. You chase the survivors in the classic Evil Dead demon camera mode, and you have to collect red energy to spawn deadites, monsters, possess trees or even cars and run the survivors down. You have to act very fast and learn a lot more about the possibilities you have. I would say it's much more strategy based than the survivor mode. You also have a skill tree, different perks and of course cosmetics. Your main goal is to slow the survivors down and kill them one by one. The survivors can revive each other if they are lying on the ground dying, and even pick up their souls to resurrect them at an altar, which makes it pretty tough to kill them for good. But there's a huge difference compared to the killer in Dead by Daylight, because in DBD I enjoy playing the killer once in a while, even though I'm main survivor. It just feels more personal, and because of that, Dead by Daylight has more replayability, because even though it's also repetitive when it comes to your objective, the killer is only one person who tries to hunt you down. In Evil Dead you possess a skeleton and you die a few seconds later. There are far less personal situations and encounters, if you know what I mean. But it also makes Evil Dead less toxic because you don't take it as personal most of the time. Saber Interactive also announced 4 DLCs with new maps such as Castle Kanda from Army of Darkness, and maybe they release other game modes as well. If they want to keep the game alive, they have a lot of work to do aside from new maps, weapons and cosmetics. So, is Evil Dead the game something you should play? It depends. If you're a horror fan and if you enjoy those kind of multiplayer games, definitely. Especially if you play with friends. If you have a problem with the repetitive gameplay, stiff facial expressions and a few bugs here and there, and of course if you don't like the Evil Dead franchise, this game is not for you. I give Evil Dead the game 7.7 out of 10 groovy points. If you're still unsure if it's the right game for you, I suggest you wait a few weeks. I'm pretty sure it'll get cheaper to attract more people after some time. If you enjoyed our review, please don't forget to like and subscribe and tell us in the comments what's your favorite Evil Dead movie or game. There are a lot of Evil Dead games. Tell us in the comments and I see you in the next video.